Imagine a giant wheel of fortune, a cosmic lottery. On it are written every single year in human history, from the caves of prehistory, through the plagues of the Middle Ages, all the way to the neon glow of the 1980s, and into the digital haze of today. If you were given one spin, and wherever it stopped, you'd be born into that world. No choice, no takebacks. Where would you hope the needle lands? Most of us, instinctively, would want it to land right where we are. We look at the past and see a horror show of disease, inequality, and short, brutal lives. We look at the future and see climate change, artificial intelligence, and uncertainty. But what if I told you that the right answer to this lottery isn't the present, and it's not the future? What if the real sweet spot has already come and gone? Today, we're going to explore the luckiest time in history to draw your first breath. And spoiler alert, it might not be as obvious as you think. Let's start with the present. If you look at the data, you're living in a paradise. Global poverty is at an all-time low. Polio and smallpox have been all but eradicated. The average life expectancy at birth has doubled in the last century. You can fly across the world in a day and hold the sum of human knowledge in your pocket. But, and it's a big but, we aren't built to appreciate this. We have a psychological term for it: the hedonic treadmill. We adapt. We get the iPhone and suddenly we want the next one. We get high-speed internet, and we complain when the video buffers. You were born into a world of incredible luxury, but because you have no comparison, it feels like the baseline. More importantly, the present comes with crushing anxiety. The 24-hour news cycle screams existential dread at us constantly. The cost of living, the polarization of society, the pressures of social media. These are unique psychological weights that no other generation has had to carry with such intensity. We are the most comfortable, but arguably the most anxious generation in history. So, if not now, then when? To find the true answer, we have to look to the social scientists who study human progress. Many of them argue that the safest and most fortunate time to be born was actually in the immediate post-war era. Specifically, think about the 1950s and 60s in the Western world. Why? Because you got the best of both worlds. Imagine being born in 1955. You missed the Great Depression. You missed the Second World War. As a child, you grew up in a world that was still analog. You played in the streets. You knew your neighbors. Life moved at a slower, more human pace. You had the freedom of the past. But then, you hit your 20s in the 1970s, and the future arrived. You were the generation that got to experience the joy of progress without the existential threat. You got the space race, the jet age, and the first computers. You were the first generation to use them, but you didn't rely on them for your sense of self-worth. And the real kicker was the economics. If you were born in the 50s, you entered the workforce at a time of huge economic growth. You could buy a house on a single income. You had pensions and the highest disposable income in history. You got the peace of the past and the prosperity of the future, without the anxiety of the present. That is the greatest timeline. Now, some of you will argue for the future. You might say, but what about the technology of 50 years from now? That is a gamble, and it's a gamble you are likely to lose. Here's the paradox of being born now or in the future. The more progress we make, the more complicated life gets. We have more choices about everything: what to eat, where to work, who to marry. But that causes paralysis and dissatisfaction. The person born in the 1950s had a roadmap. They followed a path, and society supported them. They had purpose. Today, the only certainty is uncertainty. The greatest time to be born isn't the time with the most technology. It's the time with the least anxiety. It's the time when progress feels like an upgrade, not a threat. So, is now the best time to be born? Statistically, yes. Objectively, for survival and comfort, absolutely. But if best means happiest, most content, most secure, I don't think so. The luckiest time might actually be a few decades ago. And let's be honest, best is a boring word. It sounds like a spreadsheet or a math test. Instead of best, I propose we use the word luckiest. Because being born in that post-war era wasn't about being superior. It was about winning the cosmic lottery of timing. Or maybe we should use golden, because that era was truly a golden age for the middle class. So the next time you complain about your Wi-Fi or your rent, remember, you are living in the most powerful era in history. You are just unlucky enough to know it.